Hello and welcome to World Today. I'm your host Sharmeen Ali. President Trump has had an eventful trip to Asia in the last couple of days where he resumed trade talks with China. President Trump and President Xi Jinping of China met and they decided to overcome their problems that they were having in the past. In this trip as well, President Trump met with the North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un as well, where the two countries decided to end their recent hostilities. And for the first time, a sitting US president has actually stepped foot on North Korean soil, even though it was for a brief moment. But due to all of these developments, it was considered a very historic meeting between the two leaders. We will be discussing these developments with our guest today. We have with us Yasir Masood, who is an expert on international affairs and is also very well versed on China affairs. Yasir, thank you so much for joining us today. So this meeting between President Trump and President Xi has ended the tensions that were going on, the trade war between the two countries, where some people are accusing President Trump of using economic warfare against other countries to further US interests. What do you say about this recent development that the two leaders just had this meeting, and what can we expect going forward?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think in the context of this economic aggression which has been going on since last year, because this trade war and trade friction or this kind of tactics, it was initiated last year, and the whole world was quite worried about this, because you see, when we talk about economic accentuation or economic development of any country, these two are actually giants in terms of economic progress, because United States of America is the biggest economy and China is following that. So in that context, the world was witnessing and looking towards these two countries with a different spectacle, because the major chunk of its trade is actually benefiting the rest of the country.
Right.
And we have seen some kind of scenarios where, for example, like in the May last year, United States of America has imposed tariffs on China's import, and that was about 50 billion US dollar. The problem was that every now and then US has been blaming China that actually China is actually doing this kind of an economic aggression or an economic theft, or maybe China is using all the resources. But the story is otherwise, because it has been the US which has been backtracking up till now. But as far as this recent development is concerned, I believe sanity must prevail, and it's a very positive step taken in the right direction.
Yes.
Because if it would have been carried on like this, there were new connotations to the economic progress or the economic interdependence of the rest of the world.
Exactly.
And it has been shuffling and shifting from one region to another.
Right.
For example, now we see that there is a tilt of the whole Europe or European markets towards China, and under the garb of this America's first policy, actually United States of America is actually giving a big threat to its own market because
Right.
of such policies.
Absolutely. So now if we move on to Huawei, that was one of the firms that was deeply affected by President Trump's stand on Chinese companies. Previously, due to the FIRMA law, which requires foreign purchases of critical technology to be vetted, they had blacklisted ZTE and Rusal. They were blacklisted firms, and there was a threat to Huawei as well that they may be blacklisted, but now they're going to be easing up on Huawei a little bit. Is that correct?
Yes, I think it's also a positive step, because you see, when it comes to technology, I think it's a technological warfare as well. Now, I would like to take you back to the point that actually all these Western countries and United States of America being a champion of economic globalization, they have initiated this economic globalization so that certain countries can get benefit, and because of such policies, the rest of the countries, the rest of the developing states get its due share. Now, we have seen that after the depression of 2009 and 2010, we have seen a trend which is completely the otherwise, and this is being labeled or named as economic globalization.
Yes.
And why this is happening? Because these Western countries, including United States of America, is now witnessing that a country which is also part and parcel of economic globalization is exceeding in a technology. So it's a technological warfare, but definitely it's unfair, because you see, if a country is part and parcel and is in compliance of World Trade Organization, IMF, and the other international, international financial institutions, every country has the right to exceed in its technology and to go towards progress.
Yes.
If China is doing that, now the same countries who have been raising the slogans of economic globalization is turning against China because a country is exceeding in a technology.
Absolutely.
That's where it is hitting the most.
Right.
And it's also connected, because it's not only Huawei, it is about that 5G technology, it is about AI technology, artificial intelligence. So it will revolutionize the whole concept of the technology and industry. And that's where I think United States of America is being threatened and
Huawei
imposing.
is still blocked from participating in the developing of its 5G wireless networks in the US. It's still being blocked, even though the talks are going to be resumed. So meaning it's not completely given them kind of a free hand. There's still limits on what the Chinese companies can do. It's not as if they've said, okay, go ahead and carry on your business as before.
Even if we see in the terms of that what Huawei has been, the China's technology has given a lot to the rest of the states. For example, like to the developing state. Even if we see like our region in Pakistan, you see this is a whole game and a confrontation of exclusiveness and protectionism. Under the ambit of this America's First policy, Donald Trump has actually resorted to protectionism and exclusiveness. And whereas we see that what China is offering to the world is openness, China is offering to the world is the community of shared destiny. And through the initiation of Belt and Road Initiative, which is such a gigantic initiative of its own kind and specially tailored for the developing and underdeveloping states. Also, we know as a matter of fact that under BRI, because of CPAC, we are expecting that there would be technology transfer from China. So you see, China is rising, China is on the move. So these are all those tactics, and we also call it hybrid warfare tactics, that how to impede China's progress and China's rise.
Right.
There are other manipulations and techniques which United States of America is using against China on the South China Sea. They are also using these kind of creating geopolitical tensions in this region, like its presence in Afghanistan. So if we put two and two together, we come to know that these are all those tactics by which United States of America tries to halt the progress and rise of China.
Right, and basically the talks had nearly collapsed back in May because the US was, they were accusing Beijing that they were exploiting their companies for espionage, the companies like Huawei. So they had kind of come to a stalemate, which is good that now they're resuming again so that all the tension can be reduced. There are other companies, Chinese companies, which are largely affected in the US. For example, the ones that are on the Securities and Exchange Commission in New York, such as Alibaba. That's a $400 billion company. Those are huge companies, and now they're looking for alternatives for their financing in places like Hong Kong, because apparently Alibaba is, they're considering a float in Hong Kong now to have alternative sources of financing. And similarly, other companies are also adapting, even though, okay, the trade talks are going to resume, but companies have already started adapting to these hostilities and found alternative ways of doing business outside of, for example, American firms are looking at other manufacturers. So things have already been shaken up quite a bit.
See, since the inception of Donald Trump, since he reigned its power, we have seen that bizarre kind of policies have been initiated. And the other worst part is that once the different policies were initiated, then United States of America backtracked from those policies as well. They, quite frequently they have been taking U-turn. The problem is that, as I mentioned before, that the market, the global market is dependent on these two economic powers. Now, it is hitting the most to United States of America because lots of American brands, I can name it, that they are now shifting towards China.
Yes.
Let's, for example, like Dell, it's a popular brand. Now they have opened up around more than 11 of its outlets in China. In terms of clothing, there are lots of companies which are now moving towards China. So
moving their headquarters there.
their headquarters there. Also, you named Hong Kong and other, markets. So the other countries are actually searching for new markets. It will define, it will also give new avenues to global markets. New trend is going to be there as far as, because of the trade tensions. So with all its manifestations, I believe that even the people of United States of America, they are panicky, and they are also raising questions against its own government and against its policies, that if it is carried on like this, it is hitting the most to the Americans. See, the world is challenged with lots of, deficit when it comes to governance, when it comes to peace, when it comes to development. But what America is contributing? America is not contributing at all. Rather, America has become an irritant for the world development. According to 2017 WTO rules, United States of America has proved to be the most unruly state which is not complying the rules and regulation of World Trade Organization. And it has done violations which is 2/3 of its nature.
President Trump also jacked up its duty rates on $200 billion tranche of Chinese imports. So that was another recent thing that, made the Chinese side very upset. So these kind of different measures that he's been taking are basically added to all the hostilities. Like you're talking about WTO rules and other, okay, they've been breaching those. These kind of measures don't exactly help either, right?
Well, in the trade war, there is, nobody is a winner, because it is going to harm not only China, but the rest of the states as well, the rest of the markets and the companies. And we know that this is the world of MNCs. A lot of multinational companies, they do their business. They they come under this whole concept of economic globalization or the global market. So it is not only harming China, because China has a lot of other alternatives and avenues, because China is coming up with new trends when it comes to its economy. And why China is rising? Because of its innovation, because of its openness to the market. So China would not be, would not be an effectee.
China could respond in kind by boycotting, say, Apple or Boeing. Those are things that they could have also done in response. But luckily now the trade talks.
When I have been frequently, discussing this with the Chinese officials sometimes, and they always come up with such kind of responses that they are ready to, carry on with this kind of trade war, but definitely it is not in the best interest of China, and definitely it is not in the best interest of the other countries.
Thank you so much, Yasir, Masood. Today we had a bit of a shorter time period, so thank you so much for joining us for this discussion. And stay with us, please. After the break, we're going to be talking to Brigadier Shahid Jagir about the recent developments between President Trump and his North Korean counterpart.
Book is life. Book is hope. And book is light for the future.
Welcome back to World Today. We will be speaking now to Brigadier Shahid Jagir, who is a senior analyst, and he'll be talking to us about the recent developments between President Trump and the North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un. President Moon of South Korea has said that the summit that just took place recently, the meeting between President Trump and Leader Kim, was basically an end of mutual hostility between the two countries. It's a huge development because there's been, and it's a start to denuclearization in the zone as well, potentially. So, sir, what would you like to say about this most recent summit? They say that this is the first time that a sitting US president has actually set foot on North Korean soil, where President Trump actually stepped into North Korea briefly. So what are your views on this?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, North Korean issue is of a long time. It was divided, the Korea was divided after the Second World War.
Right.
And because of the, aristocratic way of comment of the North Korea, it was isolated. And then it thought that possession of the nuclear weapon would be one of the instruments where, they can, show to the world that they are a powerful nation. They have carried out about 5 to 6 tests. And it is also said that they have miniaturized the nuclear bomb and have the capability of intercontinental ballistic missiles also. So that way they are capable, the North Korea is capable, although not very confirmed, to strike the mainland of USA. Now that is the major issue, which is confronting both the nations. Now, with the coming up of this Kim Jong Jr., his one of the slogan was that he will bring up the peace and stability in the region, and also will uplift the life quality of its country.
People, right.
There have been talks on this, which were a roller coaster. Sometime there was a hope that something will be settled. On the other way, it was a thing that no, it will break away.
Right.
At the moment, at the face value, it seems a good, with the Western analysts are talking nowadays, is a good show of photographs. But it gives a hope that in the time to come, when the Trump is moving for his next term next year, and Americans also want its allies to be protected. The US has about over 28,000 troops and latest weapons in the South Korea.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, where they're stuck up at the moment, that's very important. Now, Americans want that the North Korea should denuclearize without any precondition. The North Koreans, the Kim Jong wants, he has 3 issues which are bothering him. One is that if he denuclearize, what will be the guarantee for the security of the North Korea and its regime?
Denuclearize, does that mean actually that he's going to retain, it's going to be like a status quo, right? Because at the moment the 20 to 60 existing nuclear weapons that it has, it's not going to remove them, but it's not going to increase them either, and it's going to stop its testing.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
He wants that, what is the guarantee? That after he give away the nuclear weapons, the Americans will not, twist his arm.
Yeah, there'll be no
The
more
second
hostility.
thing
There
is
was extreme
yes,
hostility
yes,
between the two leaders at one
second
time.
point, which is the bothering the Kim Jong is that he need a good face in the Committee of Nations when the US has branded them, or the UN has branded them
Yeah.
as a state sponsoring terrorism.
Yeah.
So he
And
want that it
President
should
Bush
be
used to
lifted.
refer to them as
Yes,
the axis of
yes.
evil and things like that. So it's come a long
They
way
removed
since
it first, their name, and then again included it. The third important thing is the lifting of the sanctions and the economic prosperity.
then. Yeah.
He wants that he should be given some, economic support, some bargain at this stage. The other important thing is that Kim Jong says that when you talk of the denuclearization, it should be denuclearization of the whole Korean peninsula and surrounding area.
Right.
It should not be only the North Korea.
Right.
Now, Americans at this moment, they want that it should be, absolutely clear cut, as the Pompeo has said in previous days, that the North Korea should not expect anything in return from us. And here is where the talks went away last time also, and if they have to start, they have to start over here. North Korea, has, it's not only the nuclear weapons, the Americans, they want, the other thing which is stuck up is that he wants a promise for promise. That one step is taken, he should bargain for that, and
Right.
he should get something out of that.
Okay.
Whereas Americans are the one who are saying that we will not negotiate on any term. It's absolutely denuclearization. Now here where the talks are stuck up. If it has to move forward, there is a requirement that the Americans and the world should give North Korea some leverage in the shape of maybe confidence building measure initially by the UN taking off the name from the terrorist list, good relations, trade embargo which has been given is imposed on that because of certain US and UN restrictions, so that the North Korea become open to the world, and Kim Jong can say to his nation that, look, if I have given this, I have received this also.
Right.
So that is where we are very important. Americans can also help them in the shape of mining, because North Korea has about proven record of about 200 types of different minerals. So they can be helped in that regard. They can be helped in terms of
So greater
agricultural and all.
economic progress
Economic
for the
progress.
country.
That's very important if these talks have to move ahead.
Right.
Because otherwise, without this, probably the future seems to be bleak.
Right. So President Moon of South Korea was saying that this meeting was historic, and it was due to the unprecedented tweet by President Trump that triggered this meeting, which is it's a highly unexpected way for a US president to arrange a meeting with an adversary, which it's normally done through agencies and over a process of several months. So it was a very unconventional way that it was done, which is usually the way of President Trump.
Yeah. You can say it in one way, but in diplomacy, these are known as the diplomatic offensive. I would say, you do a thing which is unexpected from the other leader, as the Kim Jong has said that I was not expecting this meeting with you. It's a very good thing, and for the better prosperity and safety of the Korean Peninsula and for the world also, it is important that the talks must move on.
And the South Korean President Moon, he was one of the main factors in this meeting, because he's been lobbying for the meetings to talks to begin between the two countries since the very beginning. So obviously his role in this is him giving these statements as a reason that his role in this was so huge in this entire process.
South Korea is one of the main player in these talks, and it's for the benefit of North Korea also, because North Korea at the moment is a very highly technological base for the Americans, And if these talks go to a succeeding path, we will find that the prosperity not only for North Korea but also for the South Korea also, because that all technology which is across the board will come toward this side, and the growth and economy of both the countries will increase.
Yeah, and naturally peace brings
Obviously, peace
prosperity
will
along
prevail,
with it.
but
yes.
at the same time, you cannot rule out the role which the Chinese have played in this, bringing the US and Kim Jong together to each other. China has played a very vital role. The Kim Jong has traveled to China also to have a meeting with the Chinese leaders, because they also want that in case of any disturbance or flare-up of hostilities, whole this Pacific Ocean sea lanes will be disturbed. The moment those sea lanes will be disturbed, the development or the progress of Japan and China will be hampered.
Right, right. So basically this trip to Asia, it seemed that President Trump in a news conference, he was sort of promoting the US economy by saying that it's the greatest show on earth. Obviously in 16 months election time is coming back up. So all of these moves towards improving trade relations and bringing down the tensions with North Korea should be helpful in that whole process. And President Trump's approval ratings have seemed to have gone up as well recently since the beginning of his term. They're not as high as other presidents have been, but it's still gone up.
Absolutely. Look, 2020 is very, very important for US President Mr. Trump, because he was to get out from this Afghanistan, which they are trying their level best. They want to settle down this Korean issue. They want to settle down the trade war, which we were talking before with the Chinese. And if at all he is able to do that, and above this, if he proves to be, America first policy of him, naturally he will be able to, show to the American nations tomorrow coming to the vote that I have got my boys back from Afghanistan, which the people have not been able to do. I have solved the Korean issue, which was a long issue from the last 20 years. I have solved the Chinese issue, yet I have been the one who has been claiming and believing and acting on the policy of America First.
Absolutely. So I'm sure Americans are very happy with that America First policy of his. Brigadier Shahid, Jagir, thank you so much for joining us today. Viewers, thank you for being with us today on World Today. We'll see you next time. Allah Hafiz. Bye-bye.